Informed that our esteemed chief guest, Dr. Jan, has already joined. I welcome Dr. Jan on behalf of the India Energy Forum. He has been always kind. On two occasions in the last few months, I requested Dr. Jan to be the chief guest and inaugurate our programs, and I always got his full support. We are grateful once again, Dr. Jan, for your gesture. It has been possible for our coal vertical, which is headed by Gautam, to organize a good group of eminent researchers, professionals, technocrats to speak on this subject. This is so important. Coal is so important to us, being the most important resource, energy resource, and also available in abundance. And therefore, it is rightly deserving the most emphatic attention that without coal, if coal is minus, then where we are. So therefore, we are concerned, all of us are concerned. In the past, we have done so many events, all on energy issues, almost 25, 26 events, and most of them have conversed on how do we manage this transition. Managing transition on energy has become a challenge, not only for India, but for the whole world. Different countries have different dimensions of problems, different nature of problems, quantum of problems. We also have problems. Our neighboring countries in South Asia have problems. But there are some common issues, and there are issues specific to the countries, depending on what resources they have and what they don't have, and where they are already in terms of being provided to the masses, to the industry, to the business, the energy access. We also continue to have problems. People look at us that we are one of the large polluters because we use coal to the extent of 70% of our power generation, but they don't realize that even now our per capita emission of carbon dioxide is much, much, much less, almost 1/5 of some of the 1/5 to 1/6 of some of the very developed countries. I think our Prime Minister made very important observations, very important statements in the last COP26, and that should guide us right through 2070. How do we become net zero by 2070? And the skill will lie with all of us, the government, the people who are stakeholders in private sector, in public sector. How do we move, in what pace we move, in what directions we move in all these 30, 40 years that we reach the destination that we are trying to talk about. Quite often, people confuse destination with the way forward. They think destination is tomorrow. Tomorrow is not the destination. And it is there where managing skill and policy formulation skill will lie. I think in the last 1 year, we have tried to change our own mindset, because our own experience is that we are dedicated. Power people, coal people are so dedicated to coal-based power generation that even at this stage, it becomes very difficult to change the view. They think that perhaps business as usual will continue. It has continued for decades, and it will continue for several decades. But I think a realization with these discussions, as well as the actions and commitments at the government level, the realization is now dawning that perhaps what we thought for last 40, 50, 60 years in development of energy, perhaps we will have to change our course and revisit many of the conclusions that we had in the past. So at least in the last 1 year that we have attempted so many discussions, as I said, almost 25 plus discussions on the subjects related to energy, some of the conclusions are very clear. One is that it will be wrong to believe that business as usual will continue. On that, whether we are coal people, we are thermal power people, we are petroleum people, we are nuclear people, we are renewable people, all of us now believe that business as usual, as in the past, will perhaps not continue, not perhaps, will not continue. Second conclusion is coal will continue to be relevant, but with fast decline in growth. Fast decline in growth. If we have experienced a growth of the order of 5-6% in the past, I think it may still grow for the next at least 25, 30 years, but the growth will be of much lower dimension. I have done some analysis based on our own experience of the past. What is the global mood? What is our own government mood? And where we can or we cannot do. Based on this, I think that that analysis says, and I have written in one of the pieces based on discussions in the past, that the 70% of power generation that we have on coal today in the next, let's say 30 years or so, by 2045, 50 or 25 years, will come down to 30%. 70% proportion may come down to 30%, and 30% of non-coal, non-fossil fuel will get to 70%. But this is percentage. Since the growth itself will happen, generation growth will happen, per capita consumption growth will happen, because we are even now at only 1200, which is less than 1/3 of the global average. So therefore, India has to be provided more energy access, more power access on per capita basis for many, many, many decades. So therefore, since there will be growth, what will be 30% based on coal will be more than what it is today. So let's not misunderstand these statistics, which I tried to calculate. I really calculated the billion units of power that will be there, let's say in 2050. And in that billion units of power, what it will be when it is 30% of coal, that figure is larger than what it is today. So at least till 2050, let us not feel depressed that coal will not be there. While this is also true that, as I said, that business as usual will not continue. But this will depend on how best and how committed we are on some of the actions that we have thought in the past, some of the discussions that we generated in the past, many of the items which just now Gautam made in his introductory remarks. The government is very committed. Some of the missions have been set up. And I think it looks more serious, much more serious than we have experienced in the past. But of course, only outcomes and only efforts will say how serious we are. Every time we say we are very serious about gasification, every time we say we are very serious about CBM, every time we say about many other things, but then in the past, this has been somewhat little disappointing. So therefore, it looks today, there are reasons to believe that I think the whole society, professionals, the policymakers, the political system, it seems today that we are now more committed to take on definite actions on technological innovations. Coal will continue to be relevant, as I said, for many, many decades, but with a declining growth. But even there, we will have to be very serious about what we have been talking. And some of the topics that we have discussed in the past relate to how do we use coal in a more environment-friendly manner, pre-combustion, post-combustion. And today we have picked up one of them. And there are missions that government has set up, and there are industries which have come forward. There are very major industrial groups in the country which have come forward on hydrogen. So hydrogen is becoming another pet fuel, but there are differing views. One extreme view about coal to hydrogen is that it's not technically and commercially viable. That is one extreme view. And that extreme view says, because I have been interacting with different type of researchers as well, that extreme view says, okay, let's move on the way we're trying to transit, but then let us have the coal deep in the earth. Beyond that, I think maybe 2070, 80, the picture will be different. That is one view. Another view is that is more optimistic, and I also feel that perhaps nothing can be said for 50 years that this cannot be done. We can't challenge the human ingenuity. Definitely many things will come out, and so many are already on the agenda, even linked to coal. But I think we should have a dispassionate analysis that when we are talking of this can be done, what we are talking at, this can be done in a viable manner. This can be done by not creating further carbon dioxide. How do we capture that carbon dioxide? This subject also has been on the agenda for a long time. Carbon capture and utilization. Now it is again receiving some serious attentions. So these are the issues which we need to deliberate. Not all issues in this webinar today, this webinar is focusing on hydrogen. People say water electrolysis could be better. Some people say that is not so. People say coal to hydrogen is almost an impossibility in terms of cost effectiveness. And besides, then how do we handle? Gautam also mentioned that carbon dioxide will be there. How do we handle that carbon dioxide? If we can handle that carbon dioxide, can we handle that carbon dioxide in the power station itself? So these are all related issues, and therefore we thought, besides the policymakers, besides those who, the developers and financiers, let's also discuss with the people who are on research, whether India is in the process of research or is India in the process of desk research. Are we organizing our research infrastructure in a manner? At least public sector and private sector so far in energy, they have not spent money, nor the budget, nor willingness to have serious research so far. This time government is more serious. Some of the public and private sectors are also more serious. So let us be optimistic. Let us hope that coal-based hydrogen will be reality, but it will handle the issue of one, cost, because for us cost is important, and second, environment. With that, I once again welcome and express my gratefulness to Dr. Jain for his inaugural address. Thank you very much. One of the very involved and very elaborate discussion today, and we had the wisdom of Coal Secretary himself. And Coal Secretary himself is quite frank. He says that ultimately we will have to write the demise of coal. When I was trying to say that till 2060-70, don't be very much worried, he was saying that no, we have to do something. So I think that is true. When I said that, because I did that analysis from various literature survey, my own understanding of the situation, and when I said that 70% will go down to 30%, but absolute million units or billion units will be more. So you will be producing, even in 2050, more power in terms of million or billion units from coal than you are producing today, because India's per capita consumption will rise to maybe 3,000, 4,000 or 5,000 kilowatt hour. But that today's program is not meant to make the coal people and the thermal power people complacent. The only danger is both these groups. I belong to power group, and many of you belong to, most of you belong to coal group. I think both of us have been very, very complacent throughout this period. And even today, I think Partha did make, while concluding, a little bit of saving thing, but he made points which makes us again feel कि चलेगा ऐसे, चल सकता है, वो नहीं होगा. In fact, we should definitely think, how do we go about today's subject? Because I am more educated on this today than I was, let's say, before the commencement of the program. Because I was myself apprehensive, how it will happen, what will happen. What has happened is that in bits and pieces, smaller organizations or medium type organizations have done a lot of efforts. But the people who should be making efforts, like coal people or power people, they have not made the effort. So economy of scale, cost of this, cost of that. While these research people and technology development people are very emphatic that it can be made economical, not coal to hydrogen as such, coal to gasification to hydrogen, and then from hydrogen, variety of uses. Hydrogen to transport, hydrogen to power, hydrogen to many others, hydrogen to fuel cell, distributed generation, etc., etc. So I think, to me, it appears that prima facie it is feasible, it is okay. But unless these big organizations come forward and not have too many ifs and buts right in the beginning, rather than get into this, spend some money, make economy of a scale, and then move forward. I think coal to hydrogen is coal through gasification, and from gasification you have hydrogen, and from hydrogen you have many things. You have ammonia, you have this, you have that. So I think product mix of Coal India and Coal India friends, I mean that group, sister companies or brother companies, or not so sister brother companies, other companies, or even commercial mine coal companies down the line, because we have so much of reserve. I have always overemphasized this point that only big reserve of energy that we have in India is coal, other than solar. And therefore we cannot forget about it. We cannot forget about it. So that means our product mix has to be not the way we have been sending along with ash content, etc., along with many other things to the power plants and to others. We should continue to do that. But in the meantime, we should try to create these product mixes depending on transport cost, this cost, that cost. Let us not take extreme examples of something will be transported through far off distances. And then power people and coal people should put together how the boiler, like he said, hydrogen boiler. Sonde said hydrogen boiler. Will today's boiler be fit to take hydrogen or will it need a retrofit? Will tomorrow's boiler in a powerhouse will have hydrogen boilers? I know these are the things, unless these big people come in, Thermax and all that, they are suppliers, I think, and even BHL should come in. Unless all these come, I think a strong recommendation to Coal India and to NTPC and the others more or less equal to NTPC or a little less than equal to NTPC on power side would be that this is something which is worth. One point was made very clearly, we have to evaluate that point, that water electrolysis using electricity might prove costlier than coal, gasification and hydrogen. Now this statement, water electrolysis from electricity, because you need double the electricity, will be costlier to produce hydrogen than coal gasification to hydrogen. Unless we give economy of scale, that will not happen. So I think, and since you have a coal secretary who will be very supportive, and he has set up the committee, Government of India has set up the mission, I see a ray of hope in the energy sector for the coal, and particularly for the coal. I think we should all wish best. And to hydrogen in the next 5-6 years, unless that type of plan, a committed plan, Coal India, together with the full cooperation of power people, that they will also use some of the hydrogen in their boiler setters, for which some retrofitting may be done. That might make a big difference. But if that type of commitment is not there, I would earnestly request that the rest of the ifs and buts we should forget. Even if we fail, ultimately we don't do nothing succeeds in the first go on any technology innovation. Coal India like organization or NTPC like organization is in a position to put money with a clear understanding that we might fail, when we will put again some more money to succeed. That is the way innovation happens. Any other way innovation doesn't happen. So thank you very much. It has been a very good discussion. People who have questions, they can send their questions on email, and I think authors will be requested to respond. Thanks a lot.